You got two boys, so I'm going to give you two different things. That way I can cause a stir amongst them. Let's see, I know what Jeff likes. Do I still have? Oh, yeah. Coming back. Oh, look at that. All the way. Oh, I'm going to give you something different that way. You guys can barter. I'm going to try. Here you go. And then one for your groom. There we go. Let's see what we got. All the way to the back. Okay. Okay. Oh. I think I actually hit him. I did? Okay. Man, I'm telling you. I'm not quitting a job. I'm signing a contract. Wow. Good evening. It's good to see you guys. Glad that you're here and on a Wednesday night. And thank you so much for being here and bringing your kiddos, if you brought kiddos. So just remember, Sunday we are baptizing. So if I haven't given you instructions, let me give you that. Let me say this. Sunday is not the day to wear white to church, because water and white don't work unless you want to go viral on the intranet. Now, if we monetize it, because the devil had that money long enough. But so yes, so that is this Sunday, so plan accordingly for that. Also, I want to encourage you to register for the City. It's coming up next month. We're accepting resignations, registrations. Yeah, that's a Freudian slip. But we would love to have you be a part. We're working really hard to get things lined out, and just expecting another great year, our 10th year for the City. Yeah, that's us. Yeah, we're the Colton Green. That's us. But you can find us at forthecity.info. You can learn about us. You can register there also. And again, if you can give a morning, an afternoon. If you can give a day, then give a day. Whatever you can give. And I'll just say this, if you can't give time, that always works too. So anywho, well, it's good to see you guys. Sunday, we had the privilege of ordaining a new elder and appointing 2 new deacons. In the interest of not shaming myself, I'm not going to speak to the office of elder, which Dr. Creamer. So Dr. Creamer arrives, and I see him, and I walk in. I said, "Good morning, Dr. Creamer. Thank you so much for being here." He says, "Call me Barry." And I looked at him, and I thought, that's not going to happen. I said, "Dr. Creamer," I said, "I'll work on it." So I think I could call him Creamer in private, but I couldn't. And also we forgot to, all of the staff, we forgot to mention Chuck. Chuck also is a Criswellian alumni. So yes, unintentionally, but all of the staff for the last 21 years have attended the Criswell College. So that's right, blessed. So anyway, so tonight I wanted to, so we're going to be in Acts chapter 6 on Sunday, and we're going to look at deacons a little bit, more so specifically Stephen, but we're going to look a little bit there. So I wanted to touch on the deacons' ministry so as to not leave them out. Like I said, Dr. Creamer focused a little more on the elder side than on Sunday, than on the deacon side. So let me ask you this. Do you believe God places a higher emphasis on character or ability when it comes to a spiritual leader in a church? Character? Okay. Well, what if they're just really good? Okay, we get a second resounding character. What if they make a lot of money and they're going to tithe? Oh, character still. Okay. Yeah, wait, money? What? So let me ask you this. Why do you think God places such a premium on character? Let me back up. I know it's hard to think for God, and we don't like to speak on behalf of God. Let me ask you this. If you believe that God places a high premium on character, especially in the leadership of the church, then you must believe that character is important. So if character is important to you, let me ask you, why is character important to you? What's that? Trust. What does character and trust, what equates the two? Okay. You could believe the words that are coming out of my mouth. Or at least you believe you should. You could. Okay. Anybody else? What does character, why does it have a high premium for you? Trust. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry? Okay. A person with character, you see something, you go, okay, I wouldn't mind duplicating that. Okay, sure, yeah. There's not too many people who go, I think I would like to be a gangster. Now they may work their way up to it, but that's not usually, Remember back when we were kids? It used to be doctors, firemen, police officers, astronauts, all those kind of people, and they still should be, all those people, and so many more teachers, obviously. So not only does the Lord place a high premium on character above ability, I don't remember who said it, I give them credit, that God will always equip those that he's called. I've said it many a time, it is well-documented history. I felt completely inadequate to be the pastor of this church. But I believed I was going to trust God, and here we are. And I could say with all confidence and appreciation, I'm better than I was 21 years ago. And Miss Joe, it's still the same bag of tricks. I told you over and over and over, there's not another bag of tricks. This is it. I'm not kind of okay here, and then after the vote, I'm going to be this. This is just what it is. And so when we look at the characteristics of a godly leader, and then let me also preface this by saying, it's not just the lead pastor, it's not the associate pastor, it's not just the elders, it's not just the deacons. Quite truthfully, it's everyone who serves, amen? Awana, Sunday school, we didn't just go down the list. But Dr. Creamer made it very clear, and he was very spot on, that these same characteristics should be reflected and sought after by anyone who claims the name of Christ. So what we're called to be, what we have the opportunity to strive to, isn't really different. Now, how we exercise what God gives us is different. For me to stand up here, it doesn't cause me any anxiety whatsoever. I've stood in front of a few, and I've stood in front of a few thousand. It just doesn't. Now, it's not always been the case. But for you to exercise that gift might be difficult for you. Matter of fact, I had someone recently tell me, I don't know how you do it. I said, do what? They said that every week. And I don't know. The Lord. So what we see is that same characteristics that God puts a premium on his leaders, he really puts on all of his children. But we're just called to exercise our gifts in different ways. Both elders and deacons have spiritual and moral standards. And he talked about that, their home, their reputation, and their integrity. Let me ask you this. How important is the reputation for how important is my reputation for you? Is that pretty important to you? I hope it is, because it's really important to me. Because wherever I go, in part, I'm representing you, especially here in Greenville and the surrounding areas. Because people know you and people know me, and then they put us together. And I would never want them to make an assumption about this God's church or you God's people based on my conduct. It is my hope and prayer that if you ever hear a poor report on me, that you will come to me. Because either A, I need to repent, or B, we need to clarify, okay? It's important. It's I hope that when my name gets invoked around you, they go, oh, I had that happen the other day. This guy gets up, never met him before, and he's talking about his church down in Quinlan. He's talking about his friend and just how good his friend is. And he goes, and you, Jimmy Vaughn, he goes, I've heard your name 1,000 times. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are. But I'm glad. If my name's going to be in someone's mouth, I'm glad it's a good thing. And so we see that that reputation and character are a premium, because the truth is that leadership, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the home, whether it's in the Awana class, whether it's in the workplace, leadership is not about talent. It's about trustworthiness. And trustworthiness is a premium today, isn't it? I find as I get older, my trust level starts. There used to be people, places, and institution that I gave emphatic trust. Well, now I'm like, now I told my bride, I said, listen, the first time you smell crotchety, you need to smack me. Because I don't want to be a crotchety old man. I don't want to be that guy. Listen, our God is sovereign. He raises up leaders and he sits down leaders. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. And God calls me every day to make the best I can in this mess. Had a conversation today with someone, and we were just like, I said, but you know what? It keeps us in a job till AI takes it over. One of the things that I have seen, and one of the things that I practice and our leadership team here practices, is that before God assigns responsibility, we examine reliability. Unfortunately, I have seen times in the church when a person will be appointed into a position in the hopes that they'll grow into it. Now, I just confess to you that I have grown into this. But things like character, reputation, trustworthiness, and those sort of things, you know, you want to practice like you want to play, right? That's the reason all the professional teams still practice. They want to play like they practice, and they want to practice like they want to play. And so the Lord and us as a church, you and us as a church, should always be mindful. There'll never be someone put forward for leadership that hasn't been observed, that hasn't been had a conversation, because God will equip the called, but not everyone's called. And it's okay. We're all in process. But to hold a position, I mean, I was having I have a lot of conversations talking about Dr. Creamer. Not everyone who is the president of an institution is necessarily a person of character. There's a lot of things that get you placed into positions. But Dr. Creamer is the real full meal deal. And I am so proud to be a part of his life and have him a part of ours. And so quickly, we look at the role of a deacon. Let me ask you this. Can you think of a time when a practical need was met that produced a spiritual impact? Can you think of a time that a practical need was met that led to a spiritual impact? Jesus and the woman at the well. That's a good one. Yeah. How does that play out, Josh? That's right. Meeting practical needs gives us the opportunities and the tools to perhaps have biblical conversations. When I think of the deacons' ministry, I think of them handling tangible needs. I remember, Jeff, you remember when we bought this building, these buildings? Our church used to be about this big. It was one room, one big box. And we knew the box, and we wrestled the box. And we were talking about moving over here, and I said, listen, our box is about to get really big. Now we have 3 boxes on 10 acres. It's a lot. And our sweet campus is, well, she's not as young as she used to be. This sweet campus is 60 years old. And at times she shows her age, and we need to love her and nurture her and upgrade her when necessary. But deacons help to solve problems and meet practical needs. Tomorrow or Sunday, we're going to talk about in chapter 6, we see some tensions rising inside the body of the church. In chapter 6, there's some folks that are upset about the practical process of meeting physical needs, specifically food. And so there's some issues. You know, they're young in the faith and they're trying to come together and they're trying to work things out. And I don't know if you know this, but you get enough people together long enough, there's going to be, right? It's just the thing, right? And then we have to decide bucket of water or bucket of fuel, and which one we choose sets things up. But the apostles had the foresight to understand that these needs are real, they're important, and we need to figure out how to address them. Because if it's important, we need to address them. And how we address them, well, that's up for consideration and conversation and all those kind of things. But the idea of just shirking off something as important as people feeling like they're not being ministered to, they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're not having their physical needs met, we need to address that. And fortunately, the apostles weren't chuckleheads like I was one day when I go, hey man, just get over it. You'll figure that stuff out. And they did. They said, listen, if it's important to you, it's important to us. And if it's important to us, let's figure it out. And he went to the body and he says, hey, how do we do this? Well, I don't want to give away Sunday, but it's the process of multiplication. The process of multiplication. And let me tell you, as a pastor, it sounds really simple. But I'm going to tell you it's not as simple as it sounds for a lot of reasons. And that is what I'll tell you on Sunday. But we see this process, but when we bring alongside leaders who have character in their day-to-day lives, for Jared Donnerworth to be considered for an elder, that's the biggest slam dunk I've ever seen. In fact, just yesterday, I was with a brother in town, not a part of this church, another fellowship, and we're discussing for the city. And I said, hey, we just ordained a new elder. He goes, oh, you did? He goes, well, who is it? I said, Jared Donnerworth. He goes, I could have told you that's who it was before you even told me. Now, my friends, that's testimony. And so we see this, and we'll see more on Sunday, because when the apostles took ear to the concern and took action to the need, what we see is that God's church grows. We're going one way or another, folks. That's just the way it goes. Only the Dead Sea maintains its water. The church is growing or the church is retreating. And so when you have frictions and unhappiness and those sort of things, it can be detrimental. We see it. How do you think you get Fourth Baptist Church? Because they couldn't get along with the other three. Now, but we see that they responded in such a way that they saw the need, they saw the opportunity, they were willing to multiply the ministers. And like I said, we're going to talk more about that on Sunday. I don't want to give it all to you now. But one of the things when I think of deacons, I think of shock absorbers. Have you ever had a bad shock? Because it does one of two things. Either every bump you hit jars your teeth, or every bump you hit, your car does this. You know what I'm saying? Listen, when your shocks go bad, it's bad. You know it's bad. There's no way of getting around it. You can put a tape over the check engine light, but you cannot deny a bad shock. But these gentlemen, when they see something, they do something, and when they do something, they make a difference, not just in the physical upkeep, but in the spiritual upkeep, in the body. They're there to help. They're there to multiply. Same qualifications, different assignments. Now, if I went into our deacon body and I said, hey guys, which one of you guys are preaching for me Sunday? Boy, I'm going to tell you what. Jeff, what would that look like? I mean, you know why? It's not that one's more important than the other, different assignment. Now, I enjoy trying to help when I can. But some of our deacons won't let me help. They won't let me run chainsaws or other fun tools like that. They feel like I'm unqualified. Same qualifications, different assignments, but here's the most important part. Same mission. To love the Lord with all we've got and to love our neighbor as ourselves and to give ourselves the best opportunity to share the gospel So the similarities are they require godly character. They both serve the same mission, and both are essential for the health of the church. One of the things we're going to see on Sunday is this. I'll give you this. Don't tell anybody. D.L. Moody says it's better he said, I would rather put 10 men to work than try to do the work of 10 men. I love my job. I love every bit of it. The good days, the bad days, and all in between. And there have been times that I failed that test for a lot of reasons. Personal insecurity is where we start. But they're essential. They're essential, and I am so proud of our team. And so, I was trying to summarize this in my brain. So the church is like a body. The elders give direction, and the deacons provide the motion. Without direction, you just wander. And without movement, you just stall. It takes us all to go and to be and to do what God has called us to do, what God has equipped us to do. And one of the things we're going to talk about on Sunday is what are some of the challenges about the multiplication. And we're going to talk about that, but one of the challenges is to actually have people willing to step up, step out, and step in to the ministry. It takes us all. And what we see in Acts chapter 6 was the church was growing and there was a need and an opportunity. Well, ALF is growing and there's needs and opportunities. And we as a body are going to rise to it and grow, or we'll retreat from it, and that's for a different time, but it's an exciting thing. Have you ever felt punished for your own success? I think sometimes the phrase is, no good deed goes unpunished. Have you ever felt that way? Can you imagine these men of God? And their struggle is because God has been blessing their ministry and they have been successful. They're almost blessed to death. And, well, that's kind of an unfortunate turn of phrase, seeing as where we're headed. But anyway, God's church is stronger when both shepherds and servants are faithfully in their place. There are things that I am willing to do, but I am simply not gifted to do. I will go sit in that nursery. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to be pretty miserable about it. And I'm going to do my part, but you don't want me there every week. But that's not that's not my strong suit. I'll do it. But see, one of the challenges that we face in the church is to try to help find God's equipping and God's opportunity in bringing those together. Because that's when it gets really sweet. And sometimes, so my bride and I had the privilege of going on a cruise, I guess it'll be 2 years ago. And we did high tea. I was so excited. I've seen high tea on movies and TVs, and I love tea. And I wanted high tea. And I kept my pinky out. And they bring this little 3-tier sampler thing. I'm like, all right. And they give you the list of what it is, right? And you start and you work. And let me just say on that middle tier, there was some stuff. And I was like, I don't like that stuff. But I'm on a cruise. I'm having high tea, and dadgummit, I'm going to do it. And I bit into that little sandwich. Instant regret. Absolutely. I chewed it. I swallowed it. I chased it with tea. And I looked at my bride and I go, once and only once. Because sometimes in our pursuit of finding what we're gifted to, sometimes we have to figure out what we're not called to. And unfortunately, leaders fail in this, and sometimes the faithful fail. We get into something, we don't like it, and then we just quit. Or a leader doesn't give you the opportunity. Now, Jeff, Dewey Davidson. Dewey Davidson walks up and he goes, I think you're called too. And guess what? He didn't mean God, he meant him. My first church, he comes to me and says, hey, listen, they're going to be calling you this week. I said, for what? They said, to interview. I said, for what? They're looking for a music and youth, Stitch. Because I'm only 22, so of course I'm called to youth, right? I mean, right? And you know what I did? Because my pastor said I went. And I got the job, well, anyway. And then I remember the church secretary at the time, she calls me. She says, hey, Jimmy. She goes, can you come by today? And I'm like, okay. For what? She goes, oh, well, Sunday night we licensed you. I said, to what? Now, you have to understand, I've only been a believer 9 months. And I go, to what? The gospel ministry. And I'm like, the gospel. And I'm like, okay. So I literally walk in to Dewey's office with my license, and I go, what does this mean? Let me tell you, that is not the way to do it. But that's the way God had for me, and I wouldn't change a moment of it. But part of the challenge as a leader is to help encourage people to go, hey, give it a try. And if you don't like it, it's okay. We'll take another bite, right? I'm telling you what, I left that sandwich in the middle and went right down to that chocolate thing on the bottom. So as we move forward and as we grow, we have to grow together. And there's always opportunities. And I'm so grateful for all of the wonderful men and women over the last 21 years who've stepped up, stepped out, and stepped in. Because we are where we are today, and I am absolutely confident that where we're going, God will provide, and it's going to be glorious. Absolutely glorious. So, any questions you guys might have had from Sunday morning? Any comments, cries of outrage, fits of anger? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Loved it. Loved it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Character's like toothpaste. When you squeeze the tube, what's in it comes out of it. You like that? That's free. And you know why it's so important? In all the years that you've lived, not only do you know who he is, you probably know his name. Yes, and can I tell you? I hope to be remembered for something, but not that. Right? Oh my gosh. But this is what I know is people remember bad action twice as long as they remember good. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying. And so, yeah, it's very important to me because I'm carrying your reputation with me. You know, I don't want someone showing up at Ronnie's place of work and go, oh, you go there? Well, I know that Jimmy, you know. And man, I'm going to tell you what, word gets around. Greenville's not as small as it used to be, but they talk twice as much. Yeah, listen, I'd rather have that than that story. I'd rather get meh. You know, he's kind of like a day-old bath wet. Not so hot. But I'm so grateful, you know, and I mentioned it Sunday, you know, Jeff was an elder when I arrived, and We had 2 elders at the time, and he and his family were planning to do something different. They had, oh, you don't get that story? Oh, there you go. All right, thank you guys. Online church, we love you. Thank you for being there.